We're calling all writers, storytellers, and creators of tales of the paranormal and supernatural. Do you have a spine-tingling story that's too chilling to keep to yourself? If the answer is yes, then wherever you are in the world, the Haunted UK Fiction Podcast wants to hear from you. Whether you're a published author, an aspiring writer, or someone with a natural gift for storytelling, this is your chance to share your work with a global audience of listeners who crave the eerie, the unexplained, the otherworldly. We're looking for original fictional short stories or novellas with strong paranormal or supernatural themes. Your stories can be suspenseful, mysterious, atmospheric, terrifying, thought-provoking, even darkly magical. If your story is selected, we'll professionally narrate, record, mix, and master it into an audiobook-style format, then feature it on the show. You'll get a copy of the finished production to use however you like, and you'll retain full ownership of your work. There are no fees, no contracts, and no hidden jargon. Your story deserves to be heard. Whether it's a tale that's been haunting your notebook for years, or maybe something that you're finally ready to unleash, this is your chance to bring it to life. To submit your story for consideration, email us at hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. And don't forget to follow the show on Instagram at hauntedukfiction. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to Haunted UK Fiction, a sister podcast to the Haunted UK, which features original flash fiction, short stories and novellas with paranormal themes. All stories you will hear were written by a collection of talented writers, authors and storytellers, both independent and professional. In today's episode, we'll be reading Roadsong, which was sent in to us by Glenn Quigley. Glenn is an Irish author and artist originally from Dublin and now living in Northern Ireland with his husband. His first novel, The Moth and Moon, was published in 2018 by 9 Star Press. His 10th novel, Heart of the Wren, was just published this past October. When not writing, Glenn paints portraits in acrylics and watercolours. He also designs for the popular brand themoodybear.com. Now get comfortable. Grab a little something to sip on. Perhaps cuddle up under a blanket to help offset the chills coming your way. And let's dive into the story. The fuel gauge needle hovered near full, as it always did. Light swept over his face in a pulsating wave. Bright, dark, bright, dark, as comforting as a nightstick rattling on steel bars. The streetlights weaved through the darkness ahead of him like a parade of fireflies. The car's headlamps lit branches on either side of the winding road. Skinny, bare twigs reached out into the gloom as if they were bony fingers aching to snatch him. Nina's hands remained firmly gripped on the steering wheel, her eyes wide and dull and staring dead ahead. They hadn't passed a signpost in a while. A good long while. He was sure he'd seen one yesterday, almost certainly yesterday, but dawn never broke here, so it was hard to tell. The sky would occasionally turn a purplish grey. not unlike a bruise, for a handful of hours before settling back into an almost starless black. Only 2 stars ever shone, the pair of them right overhead, bright, scintillating, and fixed in the zenith, no matter what time. And red, a quiet red, but red nonetheless. Thinking of it, it might have been 2 nights ago he'd seen the signpost. He had no idea what it said. It can't have been directions. There weren't any turn-offs. He crossed his arms and settled back into a seat when something caught his attention. The first thing to do so since the signpost 2 nights ago. No, 3. A dot of flickering neon. A single word came into focus. Vacancy. Above it, a hand-painted sign lit by the glowing pink of the accommodation notice. Peggy's. He'd thought Nina wouldn't stop, but she gently glided into the parking lot when he suggested it. Their headlights washed across the bland motel as they pulled into a space. They had plenty to choose from. The car doors thumped shut as above them a young woman leaned on the railings, watching their every move. With not a breeze to disturb it, her dirty blonde hair hung lank around her shoulders. She drew on her cigarette, the tip glowing like a distant taillight. Eyes weary, she yanked down the sleeves of her oversized sweater and retreated to her room. Floodlights, acid yellow, lit their way to the diner as they tried to remember how to walk. They passed a fully stocked tobacco vending machine and he hesitated by a car, a teal Cadillac with white trim. He pushed his finger into the fine film of dust on the hood. The car hadn't moved in years, he guessed. Years. A grey Mustang sat nearby, a Hyundai of some kind across the lot, and he even spotted a Harley too. Also, something vintage drenched in the shadow. Something with thin wheels and a high cabin. A Buick, maybe. Some of the other cars he couldn't name, but all sat silent. A snort startled him. He spun on his heels in time to catch a glimpse of chestnut hair, a blazing eye, and stamping hooves. A horse, saddled but riderless, sauntered past in a paddock behind the motel. He went first, just like he used to, and held the diner door open. Nina's kitten heels clicked across the checkerboard flooring. A jukebox blasted out some Chuck Berry. He knew the tune, but not the words. His mother liked Chuck. She had played his music all the time when he was growing up. He couldn't remember the last time he'd heard it. Or any music, come to think of it. Had they been listening to the radio in the car? He didn't think so. But hadn't there been a tune? Perhaps Nina had been humming as she drove. She touched the counter and ran her fingertips along it. A smog of grease and coffee filled his nostrils, along with a hint of detergent. "Welcome, welcome," a woman appeared from the kitchen door, fixing her tight curls. Middle-aged or a little more, she smiled broadly. Her cherry-red lipstick matched the fake leather of the seating. Her teeth were white and even. A name badge on her uniform read Peggy. She stood with a hand on her hip. My, where's the funeral? He held out his arms, sleeved in black with the bone-white t-shirt underneath. Shiny black shoes on his feet caught the stark lighting. Nina wore a dress of black satin with a matching fascinator in her hair. He struggled to speak. Peggy held up her hand, rough skin, her nails short, and reached for 2 menus. "You're right. Food first. Questions later." She pointed to a booth, but he chose to sit at the counter. He didn't want to sit at the window with its view of the road. He wanted that behind him, just for a little while. He just needed a chance to think. The high stools squeaked beneath them. There were only 3 other customers dotted about the diner, each sitting alone. One woman had a white headscarf and a floral summer dress. The other younger woman wore a plaid shirt and jean jacket. The man, slim with a scruffy beard, wore a crimson bib shirt. A bowler hat rested on his table. He wanted to speak to all of them, but was distracted by an unfamiliar sensation. His stomach. It rumbled. He was actually hungry. Without looking at the menu, he ordered burger and fries for them both, like he always used to. And a coffee for me, he said. Black. Gotcha. Peggy relayed their order through a hatch to the kitchen, where a large figure moved mostly unseen, save for his midriff, comprised as it was of a large belly stretching out a pristine white t-shirt and flanked by meaty, hairy arms. Nina turned slowly on her seat, the stool whistling. She stared out of the window towards the road where the street lamps receded into the distance, into the darkness. Eat up. She jolted when Peggy slapped 2 plates on the counter. Nina lifted her hamburger and, like a cautious animal, sniffed it before taking a bite. He wolfed a handful of fries into his mouth and took a sip of coffee. The bitterness lit up his tongue and swirled the fog of his thoughts. The hamburger stood tall and steaming, a thick beef patty under a soft bun. He fished out the pickle and left it on Nina's plate while she slathered her hamburger in ketchup. He never cared for it. He found it too sickly sweet. As he ate, the jukebox clicked over to another record. He struggled to remember the next words in the Chuck Berry song that started playing. He thought of Saturday mornings with his mother as she danced around their compact kitchen, singing along to the stereo, although he couldn't remember the words or the details of her face. Only her smile and Chuck's melodies persisted, and clearly the folks here liked his stuff. He wondered who'd picked the music. Peggy busied herself with the other customers for a few minutes before sauntering over to check on them. Everything okay? She refilled his cup from the pot in her hand. He wiped his mouth and nodded. Fantastic. Incredible. He actually laughed. I don't know when I last had one of these. Half his burger sat on his plate, oozing juices. How? He held out a hand. How is all this here? Peggy smiled and shrugged. I inherited it from the previous owner, just as it had been passed to him. I had to change the name, of course. I don't really look like a Dimitri now, do I? She laughed a little. And the motel? He pointed outside as if she wouldn't know what he meant. I've got a receptionist over there, Peggy said. Nice gal. Been with me for, as long as I can remember. The rooms ain't fancy, but they're off the road. We've only got a handful of guests at the moment. She nodded to the other customers. Beverly's our newest arrival. Antonia's been here for a good while. And Zeke, she gestured to the man in the last booth sitting by the window. Zeke's been here longer than any of us. Even Butch. Someone call? Butch, the chef, poked his head through the hatch. He had a heavy forehead, bushy black eyebrows, and a moustache as thick as his Eastern European accent. Peggy laughed and waved him back to work. You might have seen Antonia's girlfriend smoking on the balcony on your way in. I don't allow it in the rooms. She dropped her voice and winked. Between you and me, they're having a little tiff just now. Antonia wants to stay a mite longer, but her girlfriend has itchy feet. The song's getting stronger for her, and I don't know how much longer she can ignore it. Now, Beverly over there, she never got her driver's license. Her husband wouldn't let her. A damn shame. So she walked the road, if you can believe it. I've never seen anyone do that, he said. We sometimes get hitchhikers passing by. Some cyclists too, and skateboarders, if you can believe it. Whole tour buses full of folks race by every now and then. She glanced out of the window. Anyone who uses a road could end up on that one. But they don't all stop here. They don't get off the road? She wiped her hands on her apron. How long have you been out there? He leaned back and brushed his chin. Smooth, not so much as a day's growth. Just like always. It's hard to know. That is it, Peggy said. That is it. But the longer you're off the road, the clearer your head will get. We took a wrong turn, he grimaced, trying to dredge up the memory. I don't remember where we were headed, but I didn't want to go. We took a wrong turn and couldn't find our way back. It was dark. There were no signposts. We couldn't find our way back. Which one of you was driving? Nina wasn't listening, so he pointed at her. Huh. Peggy studied Nina's face closely before turning back to him. So I guess it must have been you who wanted to stop. I've never seen... All the time on the road, there's never been anywhere like this. There's been nothing. Nothing at all. How... He asked again. How can you be open? How can you serve food? Oh, you know how it is. She put her hand on her hip again. We always find just what we need, just when we need it. Don't you think? She smiled like his mother. He realized, the very same way as his mother. Full of kindness, but tinged with sympathy for a certain sorrow. Nina, still chewing, turned again to gaze out of the window. And these people, he said? They can stay in the motel? Peggy nodded, still smiling that familiar smile. Some don't ever leave, but some can only resist the song for a little while. Their cars are outside. There's dust on some of them. His hands started to shake. They've stayed so long, there's dust? Peggy leaned in and took his hands in hers. Her voice became as soft as a stack of freshly baked pancakes. You don't have to listen, she said. To the Roadsong, I mean. You don't have to listen. You can tune it out, if you try. Just listen to your breathing instead, to your heartbeat, to anything else. Listen to old Chuck there. She closed her eyes and swayed to the music. She sung a few words. He caught some of her perfume, jasmine, his mother's favourite scent. I know it's hard, she said. I know the road song is always there, spurring you on, telling you to keep moving. It never goes away, not even for us, but for me, for Butch, for Zeke, and the others. We all know it's still there, still singing, but we don't listen. Not anymore. He frowned and his head started to swim. The jukebox got quiet, real quiet, and his breathing got louder. All along, I knew something wasn't right. His voice became a whisper. But it was so hard to focus out there. Your sign, it caught me. It gave me a choice. It was some moments before he realized Nina was standing. She held her hamburger by her side. An afterthought. Ketchup dripped to the floor like blood from a wound. She let it go, and it fell to the floor with a soft thud. Nina, honey, sit down and finish your food, he said. I'll get you another. Nina hurried to the door and flung it open. He followed her out into the acid-yellow parking lot. She sat in their car and fumbled for the keys. The engine roared to life. Please, Nina, don't go. That lady, she said we can stay. We just have to ignore the road song. He turned to Peggy, who'd followed them outside. Please, tell her what you told me. Tell her how to ignore it. His eyes welled with tears. Nina, please. It won't work. She can't really hear you, Peggy said. You're like a dream to her now. It's a real shame. The siren call of the trail, Zeke calls it, and he's heard it for longer than any of us. She shrugged. It's too loud for some. Nina backed the car slowly out of the space. He ran after her, slapping the hood, the doors, the roof. Antonia's girlfriend had returned to the balcony, cigarette in hand. She can't help herself, she shouted down to him, but her voice was on the edge of laughter. What's a road without travellers? She's just going to keep on driving, on and on, into the endless night. She won't sleep. She won't eat. She won't drink. She won't age. And she won't ever stop. He begged, and he pleaded, and he pulled on the door handle. Nina didn't look at him. She kept her gaze firmly on the mirror. She halted the car, and just for a moment, he thought he'd gotten through to her. But she shifted the stick and drove straight out onto the road. The tail lights flared, then grew smaller and smaller as she cruised right on out, away, into the night. He stood in the parking lot beneath the black sky with its 2 red stars, shoulders shaking and tears flowing. I'm real sorry. Peggy, who smiled and smelled so much like his mother, put her arms around him and gently guided him towards the motel reception. But look, you're welcome to stay here with me and Butch and Zeke and the others. We've got plenty of room. Come on, she said. Let's get you checked in. That brings us to the end of this episode. We truly hope you enjoyed this tale of a never-ending road trip and its oasis diner and motel. If you would like to hear more from Glenn Quigley, keep an eye out for his newest publication, The Heart of the Wren, which was released in October. You can follow Glenn on social media and find his contact info, as well as his links to his website, current and upcoming works by using the links in the show's notes for this episode. If you have an original story that would send a chill down our spines, and you would like to submit it for review, simply send it in to hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. That's hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. Until next time, stay safe and take care.